Welcome to From That Comes This. I'm your host, Rebecca Foster, and today's episode is a highlight for me for a myriad of reasons. 1 year ago, this podcast started with a simple idea that every story, every struggle, every spark of inspiration, every tear, and every smile can lead to something more powerful, something unexpected, and something meaningful. Over the past year, in 26 episodes, through some incredible guests, we've explored challenging conversations, moments that made us stop and think, and perspectives that pushed us to dig a little bit deeper and hopefully to consider the views of others. We've shared some impactful stories, each one unique, insightful, and filled with purpose. What began as a scary first step for me has grown into such a beautiful space for shared reflection, safe storytelling, endless curiosity, and most importantly, true community connection, and that's because of each of you. So my friends, thank you for following along, for believing in this podcast, for believing in yourselves, and for believing in each other. If we have learned anything, it's that there's so much more room for kindness in this world, for awareness, and for repositioning our mindset to embrace the philosophy that it's okay to lean into the difficult moments, because even through adversity, we can shift, grow, learn, love, and most importantly, we can live. All of this and so much more. So, happy anniversary to us. You're listening to From That Comes This. So today's episode is number 27. It's a milestone, and it's a chance for me to say a very special thank you to someone who has inspired me for a number of years as a public figure, truly a household name. I'm a little bit nervous. He's a political messiah, a proud Hamiltonian, and a proud Torontonian as well, I can surmise. But what I learned one day not so long ago at a Toronto Blue Jays game, he's also a friend who is quite possibly one of the kindest, most down-to-earth, authentic human beings anyone could ever meet. I'm referring to the one and only Steve Paikin. I am sitting at his dining room table right now. He is renowned Canadian journalist, author, broadcaster, podcast host, documentary filmmaker. I hope I didn't miss anything. But what makes him extra special to me and to so many others, that he's most importantly a dedicated son, brother, father, husband, grandfather, which is hard to believe, nephew, cousin, the list goes on, and a friend to so many. Steve has spent over 4 decades shaping Canadian public affairs journalism. In March of 2026, he joined City TV's Breakfast Television, which we'll talk about later, where he now leads a regular political segment, and I'm sure you've all seen it, called Paikin on Politics, and he does this Monday through Friday. Perhaps best known for his calm, articulate, and nonpartisan style, Steve Paikin remains one of Canada's most trusted media figures, continuing to engage audiences through his podcasts, his brilliant writing, and once again, through the power of television. And like I said, we're sitting at his dining room table. Steve, a very big welcome. I'm in your house and I'm welcoming you to my show, but a very big 1-year anniversary welcome to the podcast From That Comes This.
Happy anniversary to you.
Thank you.
I will let you in on a little confession here.
Okay.
I didn't know what I should call you, whether I should call you by your professional show name or whether I should call you what I always call you.
Which is?
Swersk.
Swersk.
Yeah.
And I call you Paik.
Right.
Right. And so I was also trying to be professional, but let's throw that out the window.
Okay, Swersk.
Thanks for making me feel so comfortable. For those that don't know the story behind Swersk, my maiden name is Swersky, and so the Paikins have shortened it to Swersk.
Yeah.
And no, I've been asked my whole life if I'm related to Chuck Swersky.
Former voice of the Raptors.
Correct.
But you're not.
Sadly, I cannot get anyone any kind of sporting tickets at all. No. My whole life I've heard that.
Such is life. Happy anniversary. That was an overly generous introduction, I have to say. No, it really was.
I beg to differ, but thank you. And you are, I'm sure I've left out things, Steve. The things that you've done in 4 decades are remarkable. the fact that we're sitting here in your home, I am a realtor by day.
Yes.
So I feel like we should be doing a house tour, but I'm not going to make you do that. You have a beautiful home.
House is not for sale.
It's not
and
for
I
sale.
Don't suspect it ever will be.
I would never. Yeah, I can see why. You're
like
in
it
a
here.
beautiful spot. It's beautiful. So thank you for having producer Jordan and I to your home. We travel for very special episodes and very special individuals. So there's so much to you. Let's get into you're known as a political expert. Is that fair to say?
No. No. I try to simplify things. I try not to complicate things. I don't
Okay.
know that I'm an expert on anything. In fact,
so much.
when I sit down to talk to somebody, when I'm doing an interview with a person,
Mm-hmm.
invariably it will be the case that they know far more about the subject than I do, right? That's why I'm talking to them, so that I will learn something from their being a subject matter expert. I'm not really no, that's not true. I'm certainly an expert on the Boston Red Sox, who I follow with far too much enthusiasm.
We'll get into that too.
I'm an expert on the travails of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I would agree with that. I've been hanging around Ontario politics for a little while and national politics for a little while.
While.
But I never think of myself as an expert.
Okay. Well, see, that's what makes you so incredibly easy to chat with, Steve, because I perceive you as an expert, not just in politics. You are a seasoned broadcaster. You are a true sports aficionado, which we'll talk about.
I do like sports.
You do like sports. It runs in your family.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody says, so I guess you got your love of sports from your dad, right? And I say, actually not. I got it from my mother. My brother and I, in the mornings, we used to go to, obviously, we were living in Hamilton at the time. We would drive into Toronto quite a bit. My parents had the attitude that if the boys, it's just my brother and I, my parents had the attitude that if the boys are with us at Maple Leaf Gardens on a Saturday night, they are probably not off getting into trouble somewhere else. And so we used to drive into Toronto and go to a lot of Leaf games as kids. And then Monday morning, because there was no Sunday paper back then, Monday morning over breakfast, my mother would read us the sports section from the Globe and Mail about the game that we had gone to on Saturday night. And I think there's no question that she inculcated in both my brother and me this crazy love of sports, which has most days of the week taken over my world. It's a bit obscene how much of my waking hours I devote to watching games, reading sports sections, watching highlights. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing. I shouldn't even fess up to this, but it is true.
I love that you are, and the fact that you can thank your mom and your dad too for that. And we're going to talk a little bit more.
Mostly mom.
Mostly mom. So let's talk about your mom.
Sure.
So family is very important to you, and family discussions about family is what brought you and I more closely together a few years ago. I alluded to, a Blue Jays game. You and I had an opportunity, and again, I was in awe of you then, right? Paik, come on, you're
Swersk.
it's your
Settle down, Swersk.
There's some celebrity involved, but you are truly one of the most down-to-earth celebrities, and I've encountered quite a few in my lifetime. And please just accept that you are a celebrity.
Do you know what?
Not
Can
argue.
you must allow me to interrupt
Okay,
you right
you
now
may.
for 1 second.
You may.
Just because I may be a celebrity by Ontario standards, but I've been to New York City to a play with Martin Short. And if you want to talk celebrity, that guy can't walk in public
Anywhere.
without just dozens and dozens of people wanting selfies, wanting autographs. It's amazing. The guy can't take a step in any direction. He's a celebrity. I'm a household name in my own home, but I'm not sure I'd go beyond that.
Okay, so we will park that right there because we're going to come back to Marty a little bit later on.
Okay.
Back to that Blue Jays game in 2024. You actually, I don't know whether you realize it or not, but you are part of the reason that this podcast was started. So thank you.
I'm unaware of this, so keep going.
So we had a conversation, and it was a time in my life that was incredibly difficult.
I remember.
And we talked about it, and I talked openly to you, which we didn't have that relationship prior to that game, Steve. So I was very grateful for that opportunity because sometimes in life we don't talk about all the stuff that's happening that those that are out there see.
I think we knew of each other, and our
Yeah.
families knew of each other. And
Very much
my
so.
brother, I think, is sort of, I mean, because he's in Burlington, he knows you guys better than I do.
Yeah, a little more. We see him more than you, but now that I know where you live, you're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
And I make challah, so, right?
I know
So
you brought some.
I
That's
did.
hilarious.
I
Okay.
did. So back to that day, it was a very pivotal moment for me because if I could talk to Steve Paikin about what I was feeling, it's okay to talk about it. So I also have given you another title because friend is a very important part of it, but you helped me from a therapeutic perspective. I won't say you're a therapist because you've not been trained.
No.
But your ability, the things that you've lived in life, your ability to just share openly with me about some situations in your own, history, that was impactful. And I think it helped me realize that it's okay to talk about the hard things in life. Life isn't what we see on social media most of the time. It's not all cupcakes and roses. And I think that we as human beings, as society, members of society, are doing a great disservice to one another by not acknowledging that life isn't always perfect.
I don't know what to say other than I'm grateful that you think I had some
You did.
constructive influence, and so wonderful.
Well, I'm grateful to you. So our gratefulness is mutual. I do feel that you also helped me realize that I could do other things and I could try my hand at things. And so that is all led me to here. So whether you realized that before I showed up at your door with producer Jordan today, you are a big part of pushing me in a direction. I look to you as a leader, as someone as a mentor, even though we haven't really talked broadcasting or politics. You are definitely a leader to so many, and I don't know if you realize that. So I'm here to say that is what you have done for me as a human being, as an individual. So thank you. Moving forward, family is a big part for both of us, a big part of our lives, obviously. So much so from your perspective, and I mentioned we're going to talk about your mom, Marnie, but there's another person in your life, and you actually chose this person to be your final guest on the agenda.
Yes.
And I have had the wonderful opportunity to meet your dad, Larry Paikin, a number of times at various events in the Hamilton community. And what a character, what a lovely man, what a wonderful father he is.
Yes.
So what led you to pick your dad as the final guest on that show?
I guess we're going back to the June 2025. We see it in the distance, we meaning the people who put the agenda on the air at TVO. It's a show I hosted for 19 years at TVO. And we see kind of the last week of June in the horizon, maybe a couple of months ahead of time. And we start to think, we need a good last guest. Who should that be? And we just, week by week, we would start kicking around some names at an editorial meeting that we would have every Wednesday. And somebody said, well, Conrad Black was our first ever guest back in 2006 when we debuted. Maybe we should end with him as well. And he actually was one of the last guests we ever had, but he wasn't the last. Somebody else said, well, no, I think we should maybe try something else. And somebody said, what about Premier Doug Ford? We've never had Premier Ford on the show. He's the only premier of the last 9 I have not interviewed as premier, because for whatever reason, his people have not seen fit to allow us to have an interview with the premier.
Really?
Even though he owns TVO. Well, he is the majority shareholder on behalf of the people of Ontario. And I said, well, that'd be an interesting idea, but I said we could spend a lot of time and effort trying to secure him as a guest, and my hunch is we're still not going to get him. So let's keep guessing. And then I thought to myself, let's go in a completely different direction. What about my kids? And after I suggested that, some people thought, oh, that might be interesting, because I got 4 kids, so it'd be a bit of a panel discussion. And then I asked them, and one of them said, not a chance I'm coming on.
Really?
I got one who's a little shyer,
Okay.
doesn't want necessarily a big public profile. And so I thought, well, I can't have 3 of the 4 on. That would be ridiculous. So, okay, that idea's off. And frankly, I don't remember if it was me or somebody else who said, what about your dad? Because at this point, my mom had died, and I thought, wow, now that's a great idea. We'll have my dad on, who was then 91 years old, and kind of with it, kind of really with it.
He's still with it.
Oh, yeah, he's 92 now,
Okay.
and he's kind of really with it. And as we just talked it out, I think more and more people just sort of started to embrace the idea. And I asked him if he'd do it, and he said, absolutely.
He did.
And he took, oh, yeah, right away. He said, for sure. He took the bus from Hamilton to Union Station. He then hopped on the subway and subwayed up to TVO, which is at Yonge and Eglinton. And I remember asking him ahead of time, do you want the questions? I said, I never do this, but I can give you the questions ahead of time so you can prep if you want. And he said, no, we'll just wing it. I'm telling you, for a guy who was making his television debut, he was so calm about the whole thing. And then, he showed up, we did it, and I think it went pretty well.
It was wonderful.
I still get people coming up to me. You won't believe this. How many years? It's a year. It's almost exactly a year since we did the interview. I still have people coming up to me saying, I really liked that last interview you did with your dad.
How special is
that?
Yeah,
it was very special.
And he is more with it than some 30-year-olds that I
He's
know.
all right.
He's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Is he still working?
Yes,
Yes?
which is kind of weird, but my dad, he used to have a third-generation steel business in Hamilton, which in the early 90s he sold. And he then started to do for a living what had been a hobby of his when I was a young kid. He used to buy, refurbish, and sell railway cars of all kinds, either to do work in a factory yard or to turn into a restaurant or to turn into a library or whatever. It's just kind of a hobby of his. And it was not an unusual thing in my childhood for him to say, I have to go to Mississippi this weekend to look at a railway car. Do you want to come with me? So we did that. Or I have to go to rural Quebec to go check out a railway car. You want to come with me? Sure. So we did that. He still does that. It's a virtual business, right? If you need a good locomotive, locomotives.net, I think is his website.
Okay, we'll put that
I think it's locomotives.net.
We'll find out
or
for sure.
.com, one of the two. And and so he's still doing that, probably 20 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Just
fantastic.
keeps him going, right? Keeps him engaged. He enjoys it. So there you go.
And he attends many community events
Oh,
in
yeah.
Hamilton. I see him with your extended family quite often, and he is lovely to talk to. And I'm sure the stories he has to share about all of this and more would be tremendous too.
He's all right.
Yeah,
he's all right.
He's quite
And
a human being.
The thing is, Swersk, at 92, he's seen a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So he knows a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of what you might call common sense wisdom, but he's also seen a lot of history. And, there's, I think some of my most enjoyable conversations about him are when we start reminiscing about things in Hamilton from the 40s and 50s and 60s, which predates me, but which I'm interested in. And he's just, he hasn't forgotten a lot over the years,
He's very
firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, to know that he's 92 years old is quite unbelievable. Honestly, he's mobile. He's all together.
I'll tell you what. We do this every year. We go on a baseball road trip.
Okay, let's talk about it. You were just there.
We just went. I think, like many people in Canada, we have reduced our travel to the United States significantly for obvious reasons. But I haven't boycotted the United States as many people have. So sue me.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Steve.
I'm not going to let Donald Trump ruin what has been a pretty much 50-year-long family tradition of going on a sports road trip with my dad, and we still do it. So as we sit here recording this, last week we were in Kansas City for 3 days. We went to see the Kansas City Royals host the Boston Red Sox, my favorite team. From before the Blue Jays were born. I became a Sox fan before the Blue Jays were born. I like the Jays. I love the Sox.
You love the Sox.
Anyways, while we're in Kansas City, we're going to go visit something that I've always wanted to see. Before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947, there were what were called the Negro Leagues. They were professional baseball leagues. They started in Kansas City, and there's a museum called the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, and adjoining it is a jazz museum. Because Kansas City was one of the great hubs of jazz at the turn of the previous century. So baseball, jazz, all in the same place. Wow. We are going. We're going to go visit that. I look on my iPhone It's a 10-minute cab ride. It's a 45-minute walk. Guess who says to me, oh, well, let's walk it.
Your dad.
And we did.
Good for you.
45-minute walk to the museums.
And he was fine.
And he was fine. And of course, then we got to the museums and wandered around. I kid you not. We were there for 5 hours, between the two.
Yep.
And he's walking around the whole time. So the guy's got game.
Now, were you tired? That's the question. You don't have to answer that.
I won't fess up to that.
No, you do not have to. Are you, just because your dad has so much knowledge and so many stories to share, are you writing a book of his? Is he writing a book of his memories, his memoir? Like,
the timing of your question is interesting because we've just done something. There's a kind of a computer program called, I think it's called Storyworth or something like that.
Okay.
In which they send to you 50 questions, and the idea is ask your parent, uncle, aunt, grandfather, whatever, ask them these questions, transcribe the answers, which they do for you. We'll bind them in a book, and there's your significant family member's life right there. So we did that already.
Wow.
So we have that book of my dad's life.
Okay.
And pictures and so on. My oldest son, Zach, who lives in Switzerland, he is the family archivist and genealogist, I guess. And he has an ability to go online and find documents that are 100 years old of how our family came from Eastern Europe to Canada in the first place. And he and I are now talking about writing a book on our extended family. At some point, I'm working on 3 or 4 other books right now, so I have to wait to get those out of the way, and then I've said to him, yes, we will do that down the road. Because he's got amazing documentation of how my great-grandfather, Ora Paikin, left, I think it's pronounced Sharkashvina or something like that, Sharkashvina, in Belarus back in 1897, how he came over here.
Wow.
And so we have all that nailed down, and we'll work on that at some point.
I love that. And you are the only person I have ever heard throw out there that you're working on 3 or 4 other books right now.
I've never done that before, I have to say. I mean, I wrote, while I was hosting The Agenda and another show called Studio 2 before that, I think I wrote, 9 books or something like that, but only one at a time, ever.
Ever. Okay.
And then 3 different groups kind of approached me all at once and said, one was a law firm, one was the widow of a man who hired me at TVO, who was a great captain of arts and culture in Canada, a guy named Peter Herndorf. His wife approached me and said, we'd love you to write a biography on Peter. And then a third person, a businessman named Steve Gupta, who came to Canada from India when he was 20 with $100 in his pocket. And he got into condos, got into apartments, got into hotels. I say, what are you worth today? He says, I never say, but it starts with a B. So he's done very well, and he wanted me to write his life story. So kind of 3 things came at me all at once, and I thought, I've never done that before. Let's see if I can do it.
And you're not sweating.
And apparently I can, because they're,
You may get some more requests.
I think I'm going to take a bit of a break now, but I got them done.
Just like your dad, and we're going to talk about your mom, and we will get to your kids. There's so many layers here. Having your dad, back to having him as your final guest on TVO's Agenda, I think was so moving, and I'm sure it touched him deeply. Whether he told you that or not, that's between the two of you. But it's a true testament to the importance of family. And I know that's how you were raised, from what I've been able to uncover. Now, let's talk about your mom. Rest her soul.
Can I say one thing about my dad while we're just there?
Please do.
Because I've probably done, I don't know, I never stopped to count, but if you figure 19 shows, 250 shows a year, 3, 4, 5 guests per show, you're into a number of tens of thousands of interviews. And I've never broken down during an interview, as I almost did with my dad at the end of this interview. There was a moment where I really had to catch myself, because it was, his dad died at 51, and his mother died at 74. And I know for a fact in the back of my head, I have thought for years, my dad's going to go first, and who knows how long I'll have with him. And the fact that he's still around is amazing. And so I'm extremely grateful for that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I don't think he's going anywhere. He's got lots left to do.
Inshallah.
Yes. So, your mom,
My mom,
Marnie Paikin.
yes, the most impressive person I ever met in my life.
I love that you say that about your mom.
It's true.
Now, she passed away in November of 23.
Yeah.
I'm
Grey
very
Cup
sorry.
Sunday.
Grey Cup Sunday.
How
Well,
appropriate
of course,
is that?
so fitting for
Yep.
your mom. She and your dad married 66 years.
1 month shy.
1 month shy.
Of
We can say
66.
66. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet your mom in person, but I know of your mom. Everyone in Hamilton and beyond knows who Marnie Paikin is. She really was a beloved Canadian on so many levels. She was a recipient of the Order of Canada in 1999, and you are also an officer of the Order of Canada, 2014.
Apparently.
Apparently, did you forget that part? Apple tree. There's a lot of parallels here. And I have a feeling your mom was very humble because her boys are very humble.
Well, you know why?
Why is that?
Because my father once said to me, son, be humble in all things, and fortunately for you, you have a lot to be humble about. And so,
With love, he said that, of
For sure.
course. But very profound. Your mom was also a member of countless community boards and organizations, including the Ontario Human Rights Commission.
when my mother died, one of the hardest things that we all had to do was write her obituary for the newspapers.
Can't imagine.
And I have in the back of my head a pretty good list of all of the things that she had done in her life. But my dad had a copy of her actual resume, which is a good thing because I'd forgotten half the things that were on there. And if I tell you, this woman was involved in 100 different things in her life. She was the chair of governing council at University of Toronto. She was on the board of McMaster University Medical Center through McMaster University. She was on the board of Mount Allison University because my brother went there as a student. She was on the Ontario Human Rights Commission. She was on the Canadian Council of Christians and Jews. She was the interim chair of Atomic Energy of Canada. She was a board member of Southern, fired by Conrad Black, incidentally,
Really?
which he and I often joked about. Ontario Council of Health, Ontario Council on University Affairs, oh my gosh, what's it called?
I didn't
Anyway,
put it all on
I
my
could go on.
notes, Steve.
I could go on. I don't want to bore everybody.
It's not
but
boring. She
but-
was truly. I
She
don't
was
e-
engaged. She was an engaged
Engaged.
citizen.
Yes,
Yeah.
and obviously that trickled down to her children or through her children
Yeah, I
because
think so.
you move in very much that direction.
In fairness to my dad, we get that from both our parents because he's still actively involved in a couple of different community organizations. He's had an association with the Hamilton All-Star Jazz Band for, 25, 30 years, maybe more. So, yeah, the notion that if you've been lucky in life, you should show your gratitude by giving back in some way is it's a good lesson.
And as a couple, yes, your parents were philanthropists as well. The importance of giving to the community is instilled in both you and your brother, and by virtue of your own families, I'm hearing that this is important as well. How remarkable that you had two parents to look to learn from, to live with for all those years. And your
brother's-
dad's still here.
My brother said this actually at my mom's funeral. It was, I think, one of the best things that he said, which was that, we won the lottery the day we were born, right? I mean, we grew up
Yes, he
in a
did say
very nice, normal, middle-class home in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, right? Great city to live in, wonderful province, great country, but two parents who loved each other and showed us unconditional love. We played road hockey after school every day. We just had a nice, normal upbringing, and two parents who modeled great behavior for both of us in their different realms. My brother is a business person. My dad was in business.
Yep.
My mother was big into the humanities. That's sort of the path I've taken as well. So he very much takes after him. I very much took after her. And, we won the lottery that day. We were very lucky to be the sons of.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I think that, again, never having met your mom, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I probably could say that she feels the same way about her two kids and her husband. Because a 66-year commitment and raising two kids who have gone on to be great examples of what human beings should be in society, in family, in life, that's a testament.
Do you know what I thought was hilarious is that sometimes we would go to the movies with my parents when they were in their 80s, and they'd be sitting there holding hands during the movie.
Wow.
And I just kind of, you had to laugh in a way. The fact that, they got married when they were 23 and 20.
Yep. Babies.
Babies. They were students at the University of Western Ontario. And, my mom was, I'm not saying anything disparaging by saying this is the most important job in the world, being a stay-at-home mom. She just happened not to be a stay-at-home mom. She was a stay-at-home mom for the first couple of years of our lives, but then, holy smokes, did she get out there. And it was not unusual at all for the three boys to come home and have to make their own dinners because, Mama's out doing something.
Good job,
She's out
Marnie.
contributing to the world. So,
and there's nothing wrong with the three
Nothing.
boys at home fending for themselves. What did you eat?
not well, but we learned how to use the microwave oven from a very early age. Let's just say that.
There you go. And the fact that your parents would, in their 80s, hold hands in a movie theater.
It was gross. I know.
It's not gross. I think it's beautiful. That's where I was going with this is, did you ever ask them what they did to get to that point at 80 years old, to still like each other, love each other? Is there a secret to their marriage?
I don't know if there's a secret, but I think probably, 10 or 15 years ago, I actually did a 2-hour documentary on my parents. And I took each parent to, 7, 8, 9 different locations that were important during the course of their lives and did a little piece to camera with them at each location. And then sat the two of them down at the end, and we did a longer interview, and it's somewhere upstairs. I've got that somewhere. And yeah, through the course of all of those discussions, I think I did learn what the secret to their long-lasting relationship was. And I got to tell you, of course they fought, and of course he got the last 2 words of every single argument.
He did?
Oh, yeah. The last 2 words were, "Yes, dear."
I should have known that was coming.
But they just, lots of love, lots of laughs. He was ahead of his time in as much as he certainly encouraged a wife who was very interested in being out there and contributing to the community and beyond. And while some men of his generation might have had a problem with that,
Exactly.
He did not. I think he enjoyed, he got to see some parts of this world because he was the spouse of, and he would spend a lot of time, I think, actually in the company of the wives of, because my mom she was almost always the only woman on that board or in this organization,
Good for her.
So, yeah.
And good for your dad, because obviously they communicated with one another.
Yeah.
They respected one another.
yeah.
They loved one another.
Yeah.
And they put the effort into it. And I think often people forget that marriage doesn't just happen. A long marriage that survives and flourishes and grows and changes with the people takes work.
Yes, all of the above is true. I think they were also incredibly lucky to have found each other because for whatever reason, whatever the unknowable chemistry that brings two people together is, and whether it's there for a good time but not a long time, or whether it does stand the test of time, theirs clearly did stand the test of time. And I remember in that documentary I was just telling you about, the two of them, I remember asking the two of them together, did you not ever have an existential moment in your marriage where, one of you just hit the roof and ran out the front door, slammed the door and took off and thought, I got to get out of this. I can't deal with this anymore. The answer was no.
Really?
Neither one of them in 66 years had that kind of an existential moment about their marriage.
Wow.
Whatever issues they were dealing with, whenever they were dealing with them, the end of their marriage was never an option. They always just seemed to work everything through. So,
Wow.
Good for them.
Is that documentary available on YouTube?
No,
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 it's
no. I burned a bunch of CDs for or DVDs, I guess, just for
Personal.
my kids,
Oh.
and I think they've got copies, but no.
I think that that's beautiful that you have that for
Yes.
yourself and your family. But boy, I'd like to see what their secrets were, aside from, never having the option to be it ending. I think that's pretty remarkable. I also understand from a very reliable source, whom I speak with quite often, your mom and dad, likely with intention, and I'm taking you back to your teenage, preteen years here, likely with intention, I say this because they probably saw what your future held in the way you carry yourself, your public speaking ability, all of these things.
Where's she going with this?
Do
I'm
you
wondering.
remember? And I think they helped maybe set the career path that you are still on today. They were very involved in the Hamilton Philharmonic.
They were both president at
There you
different
go.
times. Yes, for sure.
That's very involved. And I think I was told that during a fundraiser, they purchased an opportunity for their son, Steve, which was to act as co-host on a local morning radio program in Hamilton. Oh, am I taking you way back? Do you remember
You
this?
are. I do.
Do you remember anything about it?
Oh, I
you,
sure do.
Okay, share with us,
Yeah.
please.
Oh my gosh. How old
I
was
think
I?
you were 12 or 13,
Yeah, that
maybe,
sounds
is
right.
what I was told.
That sounds right. Yes. I was brought into the booth of a Hamilton radio station, and the idea was, you
got
get
to co-host.
co-hosting is putting it a bit strong, but
Okay.
I got to be there and I got to say stuff on the air and see. And now I was a bit of a nerdy kid, so I listened to a lot of
Talk radio.
CHML, a lot
There's-
of which was talk radio back then. Can you
Yes.
believe it doesn't exist anymore?
We just did an episode with Rick Zamperin,
Isn't
and
that
it was
shocking?
it's
I'm
shocking.
just still shocked by that. 90 years old, the station, it just dead air.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's unbelievable, Steve. But for another day. But
Yeah.
Do you remember feeling remotely nervous?
No.
No.
I remember thinking, boy, this is cool.
Okay.
Boy, this is cool. I did it. It was during the morning run. So I got up early, went down, did it, then went to school. I don't know if anybody actually heard it because, when you're 11, 12, 13 years old, I don't think you're actually waking up and listening to the radio if you're a kid.
Probably not.
Probably not. So I don't know that any of my friends heard it, but I have no doubt that planted some kind of seed.
You felt the adrenaline, I'm
Yeah.
sure, that morning.
Well, not only that, but it just felt like something I could do. And there were a lot of other things that I looked around at and thought, I can't do that. I can't do that. I could never do that. This maybe I can do.
Well, and your parents probably saw that long before you did, which I
Maybe.
think is also pretty impactful that they could help you and guide you to trying it out, as only parents do. I think your parents are unbelievable.
They were fairly sharp people.
Yeah, they were a good pair, and your dad is still he's carrying on and doing a great job as dad. So I wondered about that experience, and I took you a little far back. Now, before we get into your schooling, because we're kind of all over the place, I want to touch on your own family. Yes, you are married to Francesca Grosso.
Yes.
I don't think I said that her last
I
name.
think you said it perfectly.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. She's a healthcare lobbyist.
Yeah.
Is that and an author as
Consultant,
well?
you would say.
There's a lot of writing
Yeah, she's
going
written
on.
a couple of books. Yep.
Yeah. She also was the former director of policy for then Ontario Health Minister Tony Clement.
Also true.
So the political side of the Paikin clan just keeps going, right? Together, you blended a family. You have 3 sons.
I have 3 sons from a first marriage, and Francesca and I have a daughter.
A daughter named Julia.
Yes.
So Julia's the youngest.
Julia with a G.
With a G.
Italian spelling, which I should hasten to add, Dad insisted on, even though Francesca's born in Rome, and she loved the name Julia. And I said, well, you're from Rome. Let's do Italian spelling. So it's Giulia.
I have that right in front of me, and I think that's beautiful, and I love that you shared that with us, so thank you. So Julia is the youngest.
Yes.
The boys are Zach, Henry, and Teddy.
Correct.
And those are from your first marriage. So you've blended a family. You've done all kinds of things when it comes to rearing children. Your boys are where in the world?
A long way from here.
A long way.
I have 4 kids in 4 different countries. So the oldest is in Switzerland, the second oldest is in England, the third oldest is in France, and Julia's here.
Wow. What do you do at holiday time?
Well, back in the day when everybody was in Canada, it was, quite the rock and roll experience. But right now, it's hard to get to see anybody anymore, right?
Yeah.
And Zach, of course, he's the oldest. He's got 3 kids.
So you're a grandfather.
I am,
Which
yeah.
I find hard to believe, Steve. You do not look old enough to be a grandfather, but how beautiful is that?
Well, it's beautiful to be a grandfather. It's not great when your grandchildren are half a world away. But look, it definitely propels me to get on a plane at least once a year and go over there and visit them. And I think they try and get over here once a year. So it's not hopeless, but I'd certainly love to see them more, that's for sure.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
And as maybe your schedule lightens, which I don't think it's going to anytime soon, maybe there will be more travel in the future.
You know what's funny? My daughter-in-law's father, we speak every now and then, and the subject of our conversations very frequently is, how do we get them back over here?
Really?
And that's a toughie. I don't know. They're both doing well in their chosen fields over there. And I hope they come back someday. But you know what? It wouldn't shock me if none of the 3 boys came back to Canada. They're leading their best lives overseas. They're engaged in things that they really love. So I don't know. We'll see. If they're happy, I'm happy.
That's spoken like a true parent. It is hard to,
It's true.
to let go.
I mean, selfishly, I'd love them to be closer. But you know what? If they're good, I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think you gave them the tools to be able to be good, because that's what parenting is all about, right? We watch them. We want them to fly, maybe not so far away, spread their wings and fly and do great things. And Julia is in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lives
and
in this home.
Lives in this
She
home.
went off to university, and then when she graduated, she moved right back into her bedroom, which we were under orders not to touch while she was away. And she's back here.
And doing well, started her career.
Julia is a chip off the old block. And by that, I mean her mother, not her father. Her mother, as you pointed out, was Director of Policy for Tony Clement when he was Ontario Health Minister in the Progressive Conservative government of Mike Harris and Ernie Eves. Julia is an issues manager and press secretary to the Minister of, I can never get the acronym right, it's MPBSDP, which stands for MPB, Minister of Public Business Services, Delivery and Procurement, or something like that. She's his press secretary, so she is in the same line of work that her mother was in for the current Progressive Conservative government of Ontario. Swersk, it's a little weirder than that. Zach, my oldest, is a Liberal. Henry, my second-born's a New Democrat. Teddy, my third-born, is a Marxist. Julia, my baby, is a Conservative.
Wow.
4 kids, 4 different parties, same dad, which I think is great.
I do
I think
too.
they're all engaged in sort of issues and politics and public affairs, so good for them.
Well, they had an example who has been nonpartisan publicly
Right.
his whole life.
Yeah.
And has done remarkable things on the political front, which we haven't even touched on. So I think they come by it honestly, Steve.
Well, they come by their own views, honestly. And I think
Right.
if I needed better evidence that I didn't try to steer them into any particular thing, I just thought, be engaged, be involved, and they've all picked their own paths. So that's great.
That's fantastic. So what could you say to another parent listening who maybe wants to do the same thing for their young children? What's the secret to that?
I don't know if this is a secret. I just did it. Being in the job that I am in, or that I have had, I just schlepped my kids to all sorts of political events over the years, and they came and they saw, and some of politics is not great, but a lot of politics is actually kind of fun. There's a reason people like to be engaged in it. It actually can be quite enjoyable, and the sis boom ba of politics is very intoxicating. And I remember when each one of those kids, I kind of remember the seminal moment where they all got involved and what it was that got them involved. And off they went to the races. And, and whenever I voted, this was another thing, I'd bring them with me to vote. And they would
Good.
see, here's Dad marking his ballot. And they were always under strict orders. You never say who Dad votes for because I'm publicly neutral. but I am a citizen of this country, province, and city, and therefore I exercise my franchise. And to the best of my knowledge, no one spilled the beans. But I voted for, I voted for all different parties all the time. And I think bit by bit they've kind of just got engaged that way. And Julia, she was a page at Queen's Park when she was 12, and she got involved in Queen's Model Parliament when she was at Queen's University. So, bit by bit, the bug bites, and there they are.
So thank you for sharing that, because I think that is something that every parent could take away and help their children, because we have very low engagement levels when it comes to whether it's municipal politics, provincial or federal.
And it's easy to do.
It is easy to do.
It really is. Go to a rally. Go to a parade.
And you led by example with your own 4 children.
Didn't even realize I was setting an example. I'm not sure I was. I just said I'm off to cover this. Who wants to come with? Some did, some didn't.
But
whatever.
you gave them the opportunity to join you.
I guess.
And I think we forget that sometimes as the leaders of the family, because life gets so busy. But those moments are what are going to help shape the future of Canada and beyond. And our kids, we owe it to our kids to do things like that. So. Wow, everyone can take a little bit away from that. And you mentioned that you voted for various political parties throughout the course of your life. Is that more because of the leader of the person versus the party?
Nope.
No.
It's all people vote for myriad reasons. Sometimes it's the leader, sometimes it's the platform, sometimes it's the party, sometimes it's the local constituent. Sometimes I want this person because I don't want that person, right? There's innumerable reasons why people put their X wherever they put it. And I'm like anybody else in that regard. While I am neutral professionally, there comes a moment where you've got to make a decision. I think as a citizen, I respect reporters who say, because I cover issues, I won't vote at all. I don't want to ever be accused of having a preference that I'm not even going to vote. I think that's a perfectly defensible position. I just happen to take a different position, which is, at the end of the day, I'm also a citizen, and I feel a responsibility to vote. And beyond that, to model that for the next generation down by voting as well, showing them the importance of voting. Oh, I got another story just popped into my head. My daughter, I think her first year at Queen's, was eligible to vote in whatever election was happening at that time. I think it was a federal election. And for whatever reason, she got to the polling station and they didn't have her, I guess they had her registered here in this riding in Toronto, but not in Kingston.
Right.
And so they weren't going to let her vote. And she called me. She said, what do I do? And I said, well, have you got anything with, if you've got a hydro bill or something, they'll accept that as identification that you are who you say you are and that you live in that constituency. And she said, no, I'm in a student residence. I don't have a hydro bill. So it was a bit of a long song and a dance, and she had to call me a number of times from different polling stations to see whether or not she was going to be able to vote. And what I took away from that was, this is a thing that this kid thought was important enough not to give up after being told, sorry, you can't vote. She wasn't going to take no for an answer. And eventually she figured it out, and she got a chance to vote, and she did.
Fabulous.
And I don't know who she voted for. I never asked them.
No.
But she voted. And
that's amazing.
The fact that she cared enough to want to vote, I thought was great.
Well, again, she had the opportunities as a child to see the importance of having her voice heard and her choice noted. And I think that is missing today. I think that
But so easy to get back.
Yes, well, and so we'll work on that. Maybe we'll write a book, Steve, you and I.
I've written enough books. But you know what it is? I find that in some families, the parents should take their children to vote, to inculcate the next generation and how you exercise your franchise in a democracy.
Yeah.
I think there's other families, where the children are going to take their parents because they've had civics classes at school, and maybe the parents have become disengaged from politics, and maybe the kids are going to say to the parents, I'm going to vote now,
and you
come with me.
What a great switch in perspective.
Right.
Thank you for that, my friend. All right, so you are a graduate. We're going to get into the schooling part because we're going to find out how you got to journalism. We kind of know that your parents planted that seed way back when with AM 900 CHML, I'm assuming was the station in Hamilton, which is no longer, sadly. But you graduated from Hillfield Strathallan College, an esteemed school in the Hamilton area. You then went on.
I don't know how it was the closest school to our house.
It's an incredible school.
I liked it.
Yes, and you then went on to U of T
Yep.
for your undergrad.
Victoria College.
Victoria College, then Boston University.
Yes.
Yes, for your master's degree in broadcast journalism.
Yes.
Might I surmise that part of the reason you went to Boston has to do with a baseball team?
You may.
Okay, so how did you pitch that to your parents? Or did it matter?
In 1975, the Red Sox played one of the great World Series of all time. They lost in 7 games to the Cincinnati Reds, but they were the underdogs, and I just fell for them.
Okay.
And I just stuck with them. This is 2 years before the Blue Jays came along. I like the Jays, but I just stuck with the Red Sox. So 3 years later, I've graduated grade 13, as we had back then.
Yes, we did.
And my dad said to me, let's do something to celebrate sports road trip. What do you want to do? I said, Fenway Park. So we went to see 3 games between the Red Sox and the Baltimore Orioles. And it was a great road trip. It was my first trip to Fenway, 1978. Did 3 years at U of T after that, and I thought to myself, I'm going to take a 1-year adventure to go somewhere outside of Southern Ontario. Remember, I'd lived in Hamilton and Toronto my whole life at this point. I'm going to take a year to go do a master's somewhere else. It'll be an adventure, but I want to come home. I want to come back to Canada, and Ontario in particular. Where should I go? And I thought to myself, I want to go to the closest university to Fenway Park I can find, and that was BU. So I went to the School of Public Communication at Boston University, and 1 full calendar year, and loved it. You know, I went to the odd class, and I went to a lot of baseball games. Not
I
true.
wasn't going to throw you under
Not
the
true.
bus, but I suspected that you.
Not true, actually. I was very good about school attendance.
Of course you
I may
were.
have been a little better about baseball attendance, but
You're an overachiever on both fronts, Steve.
baseball, see, I maintain it's not just an ignorant sports thing. Baseball is the best game to go to. Oh my gosh, someone's coming and
That's perfect. Your grass is getting tended
Someone's
to.
cutting the
We're
grass
in your
right now.
home. We're not going to.
yeah. I used to do this, and then at some point, this is a true story. At some point, I used to do this. I used to cut the grass in the backyard, and then one day I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to collapse out here. It was probably 95 degrees
Yes.
outside. I'm going to collapse. I don't think I want to do this anymore. So,
I cannot blame you.
Anyway.
And he's in long sleeves. Wow.
So let's do it.
I think this is wonderful. It's a great
Yeah.
addition to
But-
the
but
show.
The reason you love Jays games as well
Uh-huh.
is that
Oh, you-
baseball is the best game to go to because you can talk to the person you're with.
You can.
There's a kind of a rhythm to baseball that makes it very social. So I've just always loved that about the game. And I told you about Peter Herndorf earlier, the guy who hired me at TVO and went on to run the National Arts Center for 19 years. Peter said when he wants to have his senses assaulted, he takes his son to the Raptor games.
Okay. Well, it's an experience.
Correct.
Yes.
But if he wants to find out what's happening in his daughter's life, he takes her to a Blue Jay game because you can talk.
It's true. And that's where I had one of the most
That's where we had
impactful conversations with
conversation.
you. So
There we go.
I am now forever more. I've always been a Jays fan. I have. But yes, very, very grateful for that opportunity. So we talk a lot of sports, Steve, and the political side it might confuse people. You also worked, and we'll get into that in a second, the Spectator, the Hamilton
Yeah.
Spectator. You started off.
I have the distinction of being the only summer fill-in replacement reporter at the Hamilton Spectator in its history who did 3 consecutive summers and was not invited to have a full-time job after that. My
but
heart
I think
was
it's
broken.
okay. Did you ever ask why?
I think probably, I never asked.
No.
But I think probably the reason was that I was not as good as the other people they gave the full-time jobs to. And I'm okay with that, you know.
Well, you were destined for other opportunities. So
That's a
you
nice
worked
way to look at it.
you worked at CHFI as the
Yes,
City
that was my
Hall
first full-time
reporter?
job, City Hall reporter.
And so was that your first foray into the political side of reporting?
Technically,
more
the
so?
spec was.
Well, okay, so you
I'll tell you what happened. I showed up at the spec. They hire every summer back then anyway. This is more than 40 years ago. Every summer they would hire a bunch of kids, students, to come in and, you know, be 2 months, 3 months, summertime fill-in replacements for the main staff who would go off and have their summer vacations then. And at the end of every summer, usually they would hire 1 or 2 of those 6 or 7 summer replacement reporters to be full-timers.
Right.
And that's what I was really hoping was going to happen. I got back from Boston University. I was really excited about starting at the Spec full-time. And anyway, I just didn't get the offer.
It wasn't meant to be, Steve.
I guess.
It wasn't.
I guess.
It wasn't, because you were destined to be on television.
Well, I don't know, maybe. But I said to the guy at the Spec, I said, my first summer, I said, I only want to cover sports. I want to
Okay.
cover the Ticats. I want to cover the Hamilton Cardinals intercounty baseball team, high school foot, whatever you want. I only want to cover sports. And they said, well, that's very interesting. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to cover City Hall, school board, crime, fires, everything but sports. You will get to cover no sports at all. And that's the year I turned on the news. And
Yeah.
that guy who told me that, his name was Rob Austin, no longer with us, but I kind of in a major way owe him a lot of whatever career I've had, because he's the guy who got me to see that there's more to life than just one section of the newspaper.
Thank you,
There
Rob.
are other sections in the newspaper.
We all owe a debt of gratitude to Rob as well.
I do,
So-
particularly.
Well, we're all fortunate that you took the path you did. So for whatever reason, the journey went this way.
Mm-hmm.
So you were also at the CBC.
Yes, did 7 years at CBC. Started again as a like I think a 4-month contract just to fill in. I left CHFI, where I was City Hall reporter. It was a full-time job. I left for a 4-month contract at CBC in the hopes that that would turn into a longer contract, which 4 months turned into 1 year, which eventually turned into a full-time job. And I covered everything there, everything.
Because you knew that that's what you needed to do, and
I
your
guess
tenacity
so.
paid off.
Well, I don't know. Covered Queen's Park. They send you, I mean, the nice thing about working at CBC is they send you all over the place. So I got to go to Ottawa for a while. I got to go to Winnipeg for a while. Queen's Park, City Hall, covering crime, sports, entertainment. Did some radio, filled in on the radio, filled in on the National, filled in at midday. These are all old,
No, but they are esteemed shows.
well, the ones that are still around are.
Wow. There's history there. So you are a part of history, my friend. So in 92 is when you started at TVO?
Yes.
And I watched a clip of your first foray on the desk, I would say.
Okay.
Was it with L.A. Yost?
Oh, yeah. That's how I got introduced.
Oh, so can you share a little bit about the relationship you had with him? And wow.
Just for those who don't know, Elway Yost hosted Saturday Night at the Movies, which was the signature show at TVO. And, he was Mr. TVO. And my first day on a set at TVO, Elway sort of put his hand on my arm and he said, I'm delighted, beyond delighted, to introduce to TVO viewers for the first time, and here we go. And I had my mullet haircut, which looked kind of gross. Can't believe they let me on TV looking like that.
I didn't think that when I watched. I didn't.
did.
Okay.
Yeah. And, that was 34 years ago.
And that must have been, was that a thrill
Yeah.
to sit with him?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Elway, Elway hasn't hosted, Elway's dead now. He hasn't hosted Saturday Night at the Movies, which doesn't exist anymore, for, I don't know what, 15 years, 20 years, something?
Did he pass in 2011, something
can't remember
like
what
that?
year, but it's been a
Anyway,
while.
It's been a while, yeah.
And yet people come up to me all the time still, say, TVO, oh yeah, Elway Yost. Yeah, he's Mr. TVO.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is quite remarkable. So thank you for sharing that little bit, because I was in awe when I saw. And you then, Steve, you have not aged.
I was 32. I have aged.
Well,
I'm
you-
a month
you
away from
look-
66. I have aged.
by the time this show, happy birthday, because by the time this podcast episode airs, you will have celebrated your 66th birthday.
There we go.
You do not look 66, not that there is a look. You and I chatted sort of off mic before. You're feeling better than ever, right?
Feel fine.
Just fine?
Feel great.
You feel great. You
Yeah.
look great. But watching you beside Elway, you were as cool as a cucumber then. And you've carried that through your 40 years on air. Like, you just have this capacity. And I bet if we went back and found the tapes from when you were on that morning show, you were as cool as a cucumber then. Does anything faze you?
Well, no, here's the story I was going to tell you, which
Okay.
is my first assignment editor at CBC, when I was a general assignment reporter, was a guy named Peter McCluskey. And I remember there was another reporter in the shop at that time who was having an argument with Peter at the assignment desk, and I was just standing nearby and eavesdropping. And she was complaining about how hard she was working and yada, yada, yada. And Peter looked at her and said, "Work is something you do with a shovel. Don't ever forget it." And that made a big impression on me. That reminded me that what we are doing, I mean, we're blessed if, to be able to, I mean, what do I do for a living? I talk to people. I mean, what a blessed way to make a living. There are people who have really hard jobs, driving buses, going into mines.
The list goes on.
It does.
Yeah.
The list goes on. Teaching kindergarten. I mean, there are harder jobs out there.
We need to pay those teachers more, I'll tell you.
I get to talk to people.
You do.
And I just thought, given that there have been precious few days of my life where I have gone to work and wondered about whether I was going to come home that night. I have reported from a few war zones, and there were some moments that were some close calls, including in Toronto during a G20 protest.
Really?
But I came home every night. I never, with very few exceptions, I never ran the risk of losing my life on the job, which not a lot of people can say. Yes, knock on wood, hopefully it still never happens.
You're very fortunate, and you understand that you are very fortunate,
Yeah.
and that is what also keeps you humble. And
Well, it's also a great reminder of what you were just talking about, that if I screw up on the air, no one's going to die. So
Correct.
let's not overreact to anything.
right, and more of us should look at things in our lives with that kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
So you are a sports fanatic.
Yeah.
Let's cut to the chase. The political side, you shared the story about Robbins. He wasn't going to let you report on the sports coveted position within a paper or at a radio station, wherever the case may be. Were you okay with that? You learned a lot.
Well, I wasn't okay with it when he said it. I was quite disappointed when he said it, but with the benefit of hindsight, it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
I hope I'm a better rounded person as a result of that decision. I kind of can't imagine what I would have been. I mean, I'm bad enough as it is right now as it relates to sports. And my wife will tell you, I do something awful frequently, which is there's 162 baseball games in a season, right? And if we're out for dinner, or even if we're here at this table for dinner, once 7 o'clock comes, I pull the iPhone out and I turn on the Red Sox game and I'm watching it out of the corner of my eye. I know. I just lost.
My jaw is dropped.
I know. I've gone down 1,000 basis points in your esteem. No. But it's a bit of a.
I understand.
It's a bit of an obsession.
You can be forgiven.
And
Francesca's okay with you watching it when you're out.
She's definitely not. No. I get hell every time it happens. And do you really have to do that? I kind of do. They need me. I have to be watching.
They need you. Yes. Yes. Steve, you've spent decades interviewing political leaders, moderating political debates. How terrifying is that?
That is.
I bet.
Yeah.
And covering deeply divisive issues. How do you protect your objectivity? We talked about you taking the kids out to different political events, but your nonpartisan approach, I don't think it would come that easy for most. So how do you protect that? How do you protect your own peace as well in all of this?
I think one of the things I've learned over the years is that if I'm covering an issue, it's because it's not a 90-10 issue, it's a 51-49 issue. Meaning there are great arguments on both sides, and this is not false humility, I don't think I'm so smart that I have all the answers and that I can say, oh, well, this side is clearly right and this side is clearly wrong. I cover contentious issues. Mm-hmm. And so I learned a long time ago that whatever opinions I may have about things, keep them to yourself. And I don't have opinions on a lot of things because I remember Dalton McGuinty, was 24th Premier of Ontario, once said, once an issue gets to my desk, it's 51-49, and you make your best decision, and 2 weeks later, it might be 51-49 the other way. Nothing's static, right? Everything is constantly evolving. So I think the reality is that life is complicated, And I don't think I have any more wisdom than anybody else on how these things ought to be resolved. And I'm very happy just to be sort of sitting back and trying to understand it and analyze it and provide some kind of forum for discussion about it. And I'm very content with that.
Which is truly an art form, Steve. Not everyone could walk into a debate, of a political debate, and be able to be open-minded. Do you ever change your own opinion, which is not public, based on things you have heard from both sides or many sides?
You know, I assume the answer is yes, and if you ask me to give you an example, well, okay, I can give you one example. Actually, now that, go with the first thing that pops into your head, right? I was rather sympathetic to capital punishment when I was much, much younger. And then I saw a debate in public between the famed defense attorney Eddie Greenspan and a guy named Bill Dom, who was a reform member of parliament.
Okay.
And Dom was pro-capital punishment, and Eddie Greenspan was an abolitionist, said the state cannot take a life. And I remember covering that as a reporter. And by the end of the evening, I thought Eddie Greenspan had carried the day and changed my mind. Now, that's a fairly not contentious issue anymore. I mean, we haven't had capital punishment in Canada for a very, very long time. But that would be one example where I heard some evidence and my mind was changed. Now, on most other issues, and particularly big issues, I would never offer a public opinion.
That's fair.
I'm making an exception here because
Well,
I know you, but
Thank you.
but,
I appreciate that, Paige.
yeah. But otherwise, otherwise I keep it tight to the vest.
You do. And you listen more than you speak, personally and professionally.
2 ears, one mouth.
That's right. Is that something you learned from your parents?
Yeah,
Or
do
you-
twice as much listening as you do speaking.
Okay. It's a lost skill in this day and age.
You know, I'll tell you something. After the last leaders' debate, which would have been, was it April of last year? Can't even remember now. April of 2025. This is in the lead up to the federal election that elected Mark Carney prime minister. I got to the end of I was the moderator, and I got to the end of the evening, and I went up to the four leaders who were on stage just to sort of check in and make sure that they were content that they got fair treatment. And I went to the leader of the Bloc Québécois, and he was okay, and Jagmeet Singh, the NDP, he was okay. Mr. Carney and I had a brief thing, and we were okay. And then I went to Pierre Poilievre and asked him the same thing, and he said, now you got to remember, Pierre Poilievre is out there with three other people, all of whom are kind of more left-wing than he is, and the debate is taking place at the Montreal headquarters of the CBC. So he's feeling, you know, kind of alone in the room to begin with. And he said to me after it was over, I've just spent the last 2 hours with you, and I have no idea how you're going to vote.
Wow.
And I took that as I said, I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate that because I wanted him to feel, as I wanted all the leaders to feel, that I didn't have a dog in the hunt and that I wasn't, you know, cooking it anyway for any particular candidate, which I'm convinced in my own mind I wasn't. And all four of them confirmed it, so I felt good about that.
And wow, I got chills because I don't think Pierre, and I don't know him personally, but from what I see publicly, I don't think he would give a compliment like that just because.
I agree.
Yeah, so kudos
I think
to
he
you.
meant it.
He
So,
did
yeah,
mean
I was
it.
pleased to hear it.
Wow, that is remarkable. I'm speechless. So you listen more than you speak. It has served you well. You're an award-winning documentary producer. You hold honorary doctorates from various universities. I'm sure I've missed so many things, Steve. You're a member of the Order of Ontario as well, which happened in 2014, if you remember. The Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal recipient, that was in 2012. You're a member of the Hamilton, this is a big deal for a hometown boy. You're also a member of the Hamilton Gallery of Distinction. Both of your parents also have this award.
Does my brother as well?
I just was going to say, I'm not sure if Jeffrey does, but we'll grill him later.
I'm not sure either.
Well, we'll find out. I bet he does. I'm sure he does.
He probably does.
Yes.
Probably got it before me.
This is about you, not Jeff.
Oh, okay.
You remain humble and grateful, and it's what I think helps to propel you forward and to be the successful human being. Because we take for granted our professions sometimes, but you're the real deal. You're not this public. You're not. Steve and I can say that unequivocally, having spent a few hours with you today and previously at a Jays game. You are the real deal. And I think that we are so fortunate to have had the very great pleasure to watch your career evolve over the years. That's also a privilege, because not everyone has a career where people can watch and learn and grow from. So you take that responsibility very seriously. So you keep pushing forward. I will let you speak in a second. You've returned to television, and I'm so happy that you have. But what were you thinking? You're up at what hour now every day?
5.
And
That's not so bad. My co-host on breakfast television's up at 2:30 every morning.
yes,
That's crazy.
that is crazy.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
you love this. It's obviously agreeing with you. You did the show this morning. You're still smiling. It's probably well past your bedtime at this point.
Well, usually I've caught a 10-minute cat nap by now, but I didn't manage to today because there's a lot going on.
I prevented you from that, and I do apologize. But hopefully you'll sleep well tonight. How is that experience so far? Are you loving it?
Yes, I'm fascinated by the fact that 43 years into whatever this so-called career is, that I'm able to try something that is so different from everything I've done before this that it's very interesting. I knew it's now 4 years ago. I knew 4 years ago when I signed my last contract at TVO to do the agenda for 3 years. And I said to the boss, I said, by the time I get to the end of this contract, it'll be 2025. I'll be 65 years old. That just feels like a good time to wrap up the show. Barbara Frum once told me so. You remember Barbara Frum?
Yes.
Okay. The Journal, As It Happens. She told me, when we both worked at CBC, this is 35 years ago, I bumped into her one day and she said, someday the viewers are going to wake up and they're going to get sick of looking at your face. And I always kept that in the back of my head because I inferred from that one mustn't overstay one's welcome in these jobs. And I thought, 19, I think pretty good seasons doing the agenda, leave the party an hour early rather than a minute late. So wrapped it up at the end of June of 2025, and I just thought, okay, clean sheet of paper. What do I want to do now? Well, I guess I want to do whatever I want, and that's what I'm doing. And TVO very happily said, we'd like you to keep doing a few things with us. So I am. I do the Ontario Politics podcast. It's called the On Poly Podcast,
Yes.
Friday nights on TVO. I do a monthly show called TVO Today Live, which is a kind of a town hall show. I write a weekly column for TVO still. I do a bi-weekly column for the Toronto Star because they asked. I started my own show, the Paikin Podcast, which is a couple of times a week. Breakfast Television called and said, we'd like to do a segment called Paikin on Politics. Would you be into coming down to Jarvis and Bloor at 6:30 every morning? So, yeah,
Sure.
I do that. Yeah, it's fun. Look, they're a good crew, and I
Yes.
enjoy it. And I'm kind of up at that hour anyway, so, may as well go do something useful. I talked about the 3 books I've written this past year. I'm working on a documentary on the greatest goal ever scored in Toronto Maple Leaf history, which was scored 75 years ago last month.
75.
Yes, that's why the occasion of the 75th.
Yes.
Are you a Tragically Hip fan?
I am.
So you might know the song 50 Mission Cap. Bill Barilko scored the goal that won the Leafs the cup. It was the last goal he ever scored. Okay.
Yep.
I'm doing a doc on the Bill Barilko goal. He scored in overtime. The Leafs won the Stanley Cup. It was in 1951. He went on a fishing trip afterwards. He disappeared. During the next 11 years, the Leafs won 0 Stanley Cups. In 62, they found Barilko's body. He had a plane crash, right? They found his body,
right.
and the Leafs won the cup that year. It's an amazing story. I think too many people don't know about it.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on that for the last year and a half. We'll probably be out next spring.
Okay, next spring, 27.
Yeah, and I'm just, so all of these things together kind of constitute a job.
I'm exhausted
But-
listening to all of these things, Steve.
I'm having a blast.
I feel like an underachiever. I need to go and find something else to do.
No, I'm just, I happen to have a decent amount of energy at this stage of life to want to keep doing stuff.
Don't
And
ever
I don't know.
stop. Don't ever stop.
Well, I mean, at some point I will, I guess, but in the meantime,
When the time is
Yeah.
decided by you,
Yeah.
and I think that is pretty special, my friend. So thank you for sharing that. I cannot wait for this documentary to come out. You mentioned Martin Short early on. A Hamilton boy, as everyone should know by now, a close friend to your family.
oh yeah,
Can you explain the connection
sure.
quickly to us?
My grandfather, my dad's dad, and Martin Short's dad were both in the steel industry in Hamilton at the same time. So our families have been friends for 75 years, maybe more. Yeah.
Yeah, and so your mom like Martin lost his parents very young.
Yes.
In his 20s?
Before.
Before
I
that?
think one parent died when he was 18, the other one at 20. And of course, he lost his oldest brother when he was 12.
So much. And we'll come back to that. So the connection, though, you got to be friends with Martin and many others.
Our whole family
Your whole
is, yeah.
family. And they're very much a part of your lives, an extended
Absolutely.
family. So I don't know if everyone knows that part. You keep that very private, as you should. I wanted to ask, did you see the documentary "Marty: Life is Short,"
Of
which
course.
was released? Of
Yeah.
course, you did.
In fact, you know what? I didn't watch it the night it came out, so I wanted to wait for my dad to come into Toronto, and we all watched it together. My wife, my dad, and I watched it together.
So it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
For those of you who have not had an opportunity to view, it's outstanding. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I don't know anybody in this world who's funnier, who has given more joy and happiness to other people, and suffered more tragedy himself, and how unfair that is.
Yes.
But how astonishingly and profoundly well he deals with it all. I told you a second ago, he's been experiencing loss of people close to him since he was a little kid.
Yeah.
He tells the story in the documentary about how he woke up one day at summer camp with a feeling of dread, like something terrible was happening. And the camp director then came to him shortly thereafter and said, "Your older brother was just killed in a car accident."
I can't fathom it.
And then his parents, and then his wife
Yes.
in her early 50s, and then some of his closest friends in the world, Diane Keaton, the Reiners, who were murdered by their own son,
Yes.
allegedly,
Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara, and then his own daughter lost to suicide. And I'm just thinking, it's enough already. It's
Yeah.
enough. I mean, even a guy as put together as Martin is, and he has a remarkable ability to look for the light, as he put it in an interview he recently gave. He says, you got to look to the light. It's enough already.
It is.
The
and
world just has got to cut it out. It's enough. He's suffered enough.
He has, but yet he continues to move forward. So the documentary, for those who haven't seen it, was dedicated in loving memory to Catherine O'Hara, he was very close with.
Absolutely.
And his wife as well. And Martin's daughter, Catherine Elizabeth Short, who, as you mentioned, passed away this past February to suicide. So in a subsequent interview, and I don't know if you saw it on CBS Sunday.
I sure did.
Yeah, he opened up about his daughter's death, which must have been incredibly difficult for him, although he was very put together. He said, and I quote, "Mental health and cancer," and cancer is how he lost his wife, "are both diseases, and sometimes with diseases, they are terminal."
That's so profoundly wise.
Yeah, like my heart is
It's
pumping right
just,
now.
It's just such a wise way to look at two things that take too many people from us.
Yes, and I think the experiences that he has suffered, the loss, somehow, as you mentioned, he looks for the light, and it is. I don't know how he learned to do that, how he is able to entertain and delight audiences worldwide with the overwhelming feelings he must have, and and has to process and, I don't know if he compartmentalizes things. I can't speak to that. But however he does it, he still gives others the opportunity to escape their own pain, if only for a couple of hours.
He's amazingly resilient, and I think, one of the other things he said in the documentary was that he grew up in a loving family filled with laughter, and I think that does create a kind of a foundation from which you can experience the hardballs that life throws at you. He's had more than his share, but we're 10 years apart, so he's 76.
Yeah.
And
also looks good. I
Sure
thought he
does.
looked great
He sure
in
does.
the documentary.
yeah,
So
and he just keeps, I think he understands that we don't know how much time we're going to get here, so we're just going to do the best we can with whatever time we do have.
and he takes that to heart.
He does.
There must be something pretty special in the Hamilton drinking water. That's all I can say, because we have so many incredible people. And Steve, you're not going to like this, but you embody a lot of those characteristics. And I please, you lead with grace, with compassion, kindness, and I experienced that firsthand, so you cannot argue with that. You entertain, you educate. You have a sense of humor like no other. The Paikin group has a wonderful sense of humor in general. And you take your role as a public figure very seriously. You listen with empathy, and you share your light. You have light too. This was in my notes long before you mentioned Martin talking about the light. And I don't think you realize the light that you share with so many. You give, and you make it all look easy. All of this to say, I think you're one pretty spectacular human, and I feel very fortunate to know you. So I'll stop there. I'm not going to give you a chance to debate anything I just said, but we're going to lighten things up a little bit more by circling back to family, because I would be remiss, and he would be very upset with me, if I didn't mention your little brother, Jeffrey.
My baby brother?
Your baby brother, Jeffrey, another successful, delightful member of the Paikin clan. Now, he shared something with me which I found surprising, but not really, because I'm an older sibling as well. He claims, and he might have used other words, but you used to rough him up a bit as a child until, and I can believe it because I maybe did the same thing to my little brother, but until he got stronger than you. Is that true, Steve?
Yes. My brother and I were two very rambunctious young kids and fought physically. I'm
That's
talking
normal.
about fist fighting.
I wasn't going to say that. But
Well, we did. We had absolute knockdown, drag 'em outs pretty much every day of our life until he got bigger than me. And then I got smart and thought, I'm not going to pick fights with this kid anymore. And we actually became best buddies. And I think part of it was the town just wasn't big enough for the two of us, right? Like
So you had to move?
when I left to go to U of T, when I left the house and he was on his own with my parents, we actually became best pals then.
Yeah.
And he's
happens,
all right.
That happens a lot. And I think that's so special. And you're still best pals to this
Yeah,
very day.
yeah, I agree.
You go to sporting events with Dad, with each other, with other
do.
family members. I think that's pretty amazing.
We like to hang out. It's funny, our high school, you mentioned Hillfield Strathallan, our school magazine just did a feature on him. I guess it was several months back. And the headline was The Fun Brother. Because, and I agree with this, I'll tell anybody, I will confess I may know more about politics and stuff than he does, but he's way more fun than I am.
Is he?
So he's the fun brother.
Okay, I think you're pretty fun.
Not as much as he is. He's way more fun. You can fess up to that. I'm okay with it. I know he is.
Sorry, Jeff, you are fun, but anyway. Steve, I have kept you for a very long time. You had your grass, your lawn done.
Yes.
We had to stop for a second, but that's okay. But thank you. Thank you so much. Not just for your remarkable leadership, your career contributions to Canadian journalism.
You know what my dad and my brother and everybody would say right now?
What's that?
They'd say, enough already. They'd say,
am I going on? This is how I feel. This is how I feel.
You don't have to share all your feelings,
You remind us that thoughtful conversation, true listening, and kindness still matter today, probably more so than ever. So, in a world that often feels loud and divided, and we could talk for hours more, but we won't, you need to know, Steve, that your calm presence and unwavering curiosity, because I find you a very curious person, and that has set the course for your career, I'm sure, because you're asking questions, and it was very intimidating to be asking the interviewer questions today, but you made me feel very welcome.
You should think about how the interviewer feels about being the interviewee.
I'm sure
It's
it's-
not as much fun being in this chair.
Well, you handle
But
it.
you made it very easy and got stuff out of me that I didn't think I would say. So
Wow.
good for you.
Thank you so much. Well, keep the curiosity vibrant and alive always, Steve. And you have a true gift, a true understanding of what relationships mean, human kindness. So thank you for that. And maybe, my friends, that's what today's conversation was really about. Not politics, not headlines, but humanity. The connections we make, the journeys we take, and the sharing of stories in hopes of connecting with and helping others. Let that message sink in. So thank you, Steve, both to you and Francesca. You were very hospitable. I hope you enjoy the challah. I have some balloons. We'll take a picture shortly. Your kind hospitality will forever be remembered. And thank you for helping us to celebrate our 1-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Not painful at all.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little.
And to those of you who celebrated with us today as well, thank you for making the time. The message today is simple. Pay it forward in any way, shape, or form. Kindness goes a very long way. And believe, because from that comes this. With love.